And leadership, of course, comes with its challenges. For you, what has been the most difficult part of being a leader?
The most difficult part for me has been when I see people act in bad faith, whether it's involving me or it's involving other people that I care about. I have a hard time understanding how people can behave in that way.
And as a woman, you mentioned that episode with the banker. Were there any other episodes where you felt that you were treated unfairly as a woman, or it was challenging to be a woman leader?
So I did have a few episodes. There were moments in the home care space that majority of the companies were led by men, and the private companies anyway. And I wasn't allowed to join an association that was led by men for home care. I felt that people didn't want to hear from a clinician in a leadership position. And I think it's very important now, if we look at healthcare going forward, that you need to have a clinician and you need to have multiple clinicians having input into how you operate. That was a bit of an obstacle for me, but I'm pretty good at standing up for myself and standing up for my values in a professional way. And I won't compromise my integrity or my values for anyone. In the world we live in, not everybody has a clinical background, and certainly leadership character is as important as the credentials that you carry. So if you have great leadership character and you've been evaluated for that, you can surround yourself with the right people that have the level of expertise that you're looking for. So I think it's a character flaw when leaders think they know everything about everything, because you can't possibly do that with any level of credibility.
Mm-hmm. And how would you describe someone having a great leadership character?
Honest, authentic, integrity, transparent, accountable, kind, humility. I could keep going.
And when you're looking at succession planning or your leadership team, what do you look for in your top performers, or what do you look for in leaders that you would want to hire or you would want to work with?
Well, number one for me is that we share a common set of values for people. If we can't get beyond that, we're probably not going to last working together, because every decision we make around quality, around business, and everything centers on the patient. So we better share those common set of values and ethics with respect to patients and staff. So that's the most important thing for me, and then working through the rest after that. I became an instructor of the Colors Workshop, 30 years ago, and that was how I interviewed people. Everybody in the organization was like me. Not much would get done. We'd have a lot of vision, but we needed people to be able to operationalize things. So I used that as my guide. And then over the years, that has changed. In the conversations have changed, but we're looking for adherence to closing the gaps, quality charter, and the values that we hold near and dear. I also think it's very important to ask people, like, who do you want to be in 5 years? And how are you going to get there? And not what's your mandate in 5 years, who are you as a person going to be?
Connie, what are your top 3 values as a leader?
My number 1 is honesty. Number 2 is ethics and integrity.
And you said you're very aware of your own strengths, your own weaknesses. You hire for your weaknesses. How can leaders become more self-aware?
So I think there are many ways. One is continuing education, finding the appropriate mentors that aren't yes people to you. And I also think that, doing the appropriate self-awareness reviews like 360s and all of that helps you learn how others perceive who you are. And that has been incredibly valuable. And volunteering is an important part of self-awareness.
So just touching on diversity, I know your husband came here as an immigrant, and you're very passionate about helping immigrants and people from marginalized communities. And when we look at senior leadership, especially in healthcare, we don't have as much diversity as compared to our population. So how do we improve this, or what sorts of changes can we bring about, or do we need to bring about?
I think the solution in my mind is not looking so much at the academic credentials as looking at character. And I think if we make a significant shift to looking at character, and you look at your employee base, it would be natural to add diversity, especially if you're in the GTA. You must have a diverse team across the organization to meet the needs of your staff. You have to.
When you look back at your journey, what would you say has been the biggest failure or mistake or learning opportunity for you?
I made a lot of mistakes, let's be honest about that. I think sometimes I trust people too much, and I trust people to do what's right. And I think one of my character weaknesses is that I love people so much, I always try to find the good. And sometimes my brain tells me that people are good when they're not. If I look back at what I would call mistakes, it's always been tied to that weakness, just because I believe in fixing things, and I always think I can help people to be their best. And it's hard to learn that some people you can't help. That's been very difficult for me.
I resonate with that because I always like to see the positives in any person, because I believe that everybody has those.
Yeah, I always said, Cheyenne, in my past, if I ever wake up and I'm a cynical person, it's time to move on. And I don't feel that I've reached that point, but I've always had that in the back of my mind.
And what is the greatest lesson you will be taking away from leading through COVID and all of this change and ambiguity around us?
I have watched, since COVID began, I've watched leadership and how they've dealt with this crisis. I've watched so many new self-proclaimed experts put themselves on the market. When we are leaders, we have an obligation to be positive and to share the good as well as the criticisms. But it seems now there are far too many criticisms that are self-serving instead of people being solution focused. That's quite disheartening for me, because we have the entire population relying on leadership to make the right decisions. And at a time when people are very fragile with their mental health and with their own financial status, to see the constant negativity and criticism has been very disheartening for me to watch, and I believe we need to change the narrative.